The Laws of Faith, Part 3. Faith requires action. Mark chapter 5, verse 24 to 34. A large crowd followed and pressured around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet, instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciple answers, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." From the story of the woman who was bleeding, we will draw four observations to fully understand the third law of faith. First observation: the condition of the woman. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. In these days, we may seem not to understand her true condition. This kind of disease comes with difficulty and shame. Mark chapter 5 verse 26, she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. She had gone to many doctors and had spent all her money, but instead of getting better, she grew worse. The woman's condition is a picture of despair and no hope. To better appreciate the effort she made to heal, we need to know the Old Testament regulations regarding a woman who has her regular flow. In Leviticus chapter 15 verse 19, when a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. The word touches in this verse is a literal touching and does not imply sexual relations. Literally, no part of the body can be touched by a woman who is bleeding. Anyone who touches a woman who bleeds in the Old Testament will be considered unclean. That's why this kind of sickness during the Old Testament is not an ordinary sickness. This sickness entails separation. The bleeding woman must be separated from her family and community. Furthermore, you can read within the line that not only she was not to be touched by anyone, but she was also not allowed to touch anyone or even anything. In Leviticus chapter 15, verse 20 to 22, anything she lies on during her period will be unclean, and anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bath with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches anything she sits on must wash his clothes and bath with water, and he will be unclean till evening. If a woman has a monthly period, she must be separated from her husband for 7 days. Her husband could not touch her. Leviticus chapter 15, verse 23 to 24. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, he will be unclean till evening. If a man lies with her and her monthly flow touches him, he will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. The rules regarding a woman's bleeding are strict and delicate. This is in a normal monthly menstruation. How much more when she is bleeding for a long time, for 12 years. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge, just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean. as is her bed during her monthly period, and anything she sits on will be unclean as during her period. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bath with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Now imagine a woman standing in the middle of the crowd with a discharge of blood for 12 years. This is a death sentence for her. The moment people will know that she is bleeding, she could be stoned to death right there. She knew the rule. Everybody knew the rule. This was strictly forbidden. Now we can better understand how difficult it was for her to act on faith, to enter the crowd and touch the hem of Jesus' garment to be healed. Your situation may not be the same as this woman. You may not be bleeding from the body, but from other parts of your life. It could be your marriage or family. Maybe it's because of a broken heart, or maybe it's your financial pocket. What part of your life is bleeding right now? To God be the glory. God bless you.